Happy Tuesday. Today's Tuesday training is a discussion on a topic that I've been wanting to cover for a long time and have lightly touched on with some of my clients, but I've not really gone in depth with the severity of this topic. I want to discuss environmental toxins with you today. When I started back in 2017 in January, my journey with my autoimmune condition, there were so many things that I was not aware of. Growing up, I didn't know any of these things. I don't think even my family was aware of any of these things. I know they're not because I try teaching them about it today. But since that time, I've really learned myself the in-depth, once I dove into the research and really try to do everything in my power to heal my Hashimoto's thyroiditis disease. So definitely looking at environmental toxins is a major component of the healing process and reducing inflammation in your body. So when you start to really peel back the layers of this onion topic, it can really get pretty scary and sometimes overwhelming. So I just want to, I want to try not to scare you today, but to really provide you with some solutions on how to protect yourself and your family moving forward. So environmental toxins are cancer-causing chemicals and endocrine disruptors. They can be both human-made and they can be naturally occurring. So they can harm our health by really disrupting sensitive biological systems. And first, we must really address what endocrine disruptors are. Like, what am I talking about? Where they come from and how you can minimize your exposure to help protect yourself from the potentially dangerous effects. So first, what are environmental toxins? We have lead, mercury, radon, formaldehyde, benzene, and cadmium, And they also include human-made chemicals like BPA, phthalates, pesticides, and in toxic doses, these can all these compounds can negatively affect the human health, your body, and overall immune system. So many of them are known to cause cancer, like radon, formaldehyde, benzene. And some can act as endocrine disruptors, which we'll talk a little bit more about what that is. So like BPA, pesticides, phthalates, and some can cause organ failure or developmental problems. So that's lead, mercury, and then cadmium. Many of you also know that lead is toxic. So old paint, old pipes, you've heard this before. People generally know that these are toxic sources. And in 1950s and 1960s, cadmium toxicity was first realized. And policies now limit industrial exposure to these two chemicals. And then mercury. Mercury is also really well known. And I could go on for about an hour talking about mercury, but with some of these environmental toxins, I really want to just focus on the ones that are most common in our environment, but also the ones that aren't as well regulated, because with lead, cadmium, and mercury, they definitely are more regulated now that we know the risks. So endocrine disruptors, what do I mean when I'm saying endocrine disruptors? Endocrine disruptors include a wide range of substances interfere with your body's endocrine system. So this is the system that helps to regulate your hormones and the cell signaling, so between cell signaling. And when this is disrupted, it can produce adverse developmental, reproductive, neurological, and immune effects. And endocrine disruptors usually can mimic estrogen and are found in many everyday products that we use. And not many people know this is something that I feel like is becoming more known and more apparent, but so many people don't know it. And that's why I think it's so important to talk about it, even when we're, most of the time I talk about food issues and food related topics, but it's a huge part of a holistic balance and overall functional wellness and health. So again, endocrine disruptors, just reiterating that they usually can mimic estrogen and found everywhere, like in plastic bottles, containers, food can liners, detergents, flame retardants, toys for kids, skincare products like hair care and makeup, and pesticides. So the industrial produced compounds of BPA, pesticides, and phthalates are among the most potentially dangerous. And research can show that endocrine disruptors can pose the greatest risk, especially during prenatal and early postnatal development, when really organ and neural systems are just forming. Pregnant or breastfeeding women or women planning on becoming pregnant should really be the most cautious. I always find this so interesting. There's so many things out there that talk about like, oh, make sure that, you know, when you are in the stages of trying to become pregnant, make sure you're not exposed to this, make sure you're not exposed to that. And there's so many warning signs out there specific to pregnancy. And because obviously it has a large impact on the growing fetus. But I always found it so interesting, like, why don't they just say this to everyone? If you're trying to protect the unborn, why don't we also try to protect the people that are already adults and are also out and exposed to these chemicals too? So if you ever see anything that says like, really make sure you don't do this when you're pregnant, I would also just recommend digging deeper and really learning the why, and then saying, is that really safe for me? If male, female, whoever you are, is that safe for me to be around too? So BPA, I feel like most people know what this is, or they've heard it associated with plastic bottles. And most people will look now for that BPA-free symbol, right? You see it all the time. But it doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't other components in that plastic bottle that can be detrimental or dangerous to your health. So it's a compound that is widely used in a manufacturing of polycarbonate plastics and epoxy resins. And they're used in food and drinking packaging, water, baby bottles, metal, so plastic baby bottles, metal can linings, bottle tops, water supply pipes. Also, BPA can be found in thermal paper receipts. So any receipts you get from the store, any airline tickets. So again, it's more places and more common than you think it is in just plastic bottles. So low dose exposure to BPA may produce a wide variety of physiological symptoms. So that's including obesity, infertility, aggressive behavior, early onset of puberty in children, hormone-dependent cancers such as prostate and breast cancer, and lower testosterone levels and sperm production in males. BPA exposure also occurs when the chemical leaches out from the product into the food and water or on your skin, especially when like plastic containers are washed, heated, stressed, bent. So the BPA is then leaching out. And the highest estimated daily intakes of BPA really occur in infants and children. So just think about that. Their little bodies, their little organs, their developing brains are all exposed to these common toxins. So I found this stat that 93% of children 6 years of age and older have detectable levels of BPA in their urine. And in 2011, a study found that 96% of American women also have detectable levels. So in September of 2010, Canada became the first country to declare BPA a toxic substance. And then the European Union and Canada now ban it in all of their baby bottles. But notice how I haven't said anything about the US yet. It seems as though it would take some time for whatever Canada and whatever Europe does for it to trickle here in the United States. So just because something is sold in the store does not mean it's safe. And that's an important thing to really understand. Like many people are like, oh, you know, it has to go through processing or it has to go through government regulations. No, it does not. And a lot of times when they're learning about what chemicals are in products, it's a long trickling effect. It takes a long time in order to get those regulations passed, which is unfortunate because it also is a lot of exposure that has happened over that period of time. So what can you do about it? To reduce your BPA exposure, minimize the use of all plastic containers. I have no plastic containers in my house. I have thrown away anything that is plastic and I use all glass. Also, especially with the number 7 and the number 3 on the bottom of the plastic container has a higher level has BPA in it. Also, don't microwave plastic food containers. I remember talking about this back in 2017 with clients in a program that I used to teach, and people would ask me about the microwavable bags for vegetables. And I would always say, hey, if you buy them in the freezer that way, take them out, put them in a glass container, warm it that way, because we don't know exactly at that point. I didn't know as much as I know now, but we don't know what is leaching into the foods from those bags. Also, so don't microwave plastic food containers, don't wash them in the dishwasher or use any harsh detergents because it's going to start to push the BPA into the air, into the food, onto your hands. And then reduce the use of canned foods. So eating mostly fresh or frozen foods. And then when possible, like I said, opt for glass, porcelain, stainless steel cups. I have stainless steel, all my water bottles are stainless steel or glass, and any travel mugs that you have to make sure you're not using plastic. The use of baby bottles, make sure that they are BPA free or they're glass. And then look for toys that are BPA free. A lot of times toys, again, plastics have BPA in them. So again, your children are getting exposed to that on a regular basis if it's not BPA free. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is pesticides. So where are they? What are they? And how can you reduce your exposure? So pesticides are really any substance that is used to kill, repel, or control certain forms of plant or animal life that are really deemed as pests. So anything that doesn't belong on the plant or the food or the animal or what have you in the soil. So this really includes herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, disinfectants, and compounds used to control rodents. That's a big one. And in the United States, about 4.5 billion pounds of pesticides are used each year. It's a pretty large number to think about. And most conventional food production uses pesticides. So people are exposed to low levels of pesticide residues throughout their diets. And while the health effects of pesticide residues are not entirely clear, there's data and we're still doing research, but there is some research from the National Institute of Health that shows that farmers who use agriculture insecticides experience increase in headaches and fatigue and insomnia and dizziness and hand tremors and other neurological symptoms, while licensed pesticide applicators, so the people that actually apply the pesticides, have a 20 to 200% increase in developing diabetes. That's like a really wide range, 20 to 200%. But again, depends on genetic variabilities, variance, I mean. And that's even 20%, having 20% increased risk of diabetes just from applying the pesticides. Other data found that individuals reported regular exposure to pesticides had a 70% higher incidence of Parkinson's disease, and then than those who had reported no exposure to pesticides or no use. It also appears that children are particularly susceptible, so we know that their growing bodies are, to adverse effects from exposure to pesticides, neurological developmental problems, and this is probably because children eat more food relative to their size. So their body size and amount of food that they're taking in because they're growing is larger than their capacity for excreting out these toxins. They also play in the dirt and spend time on the ground, and pesticides linger there, especially in non-organic farming. And there are still pesticides that are used in organic farming, just different types. So what can you do to reduce your exposure to pesticides? Wash and scrub all fruits and vegetables, whether they're organic or conventionally grown. I also use a couple different methods to really clean my produce well, using a form of baking soda and water, or I use a vinegar bath. So let me know if you want any more information on this too, and I can give you the exact recipe on how to do that. Also, if possible, purchase mostly organic fruits and vegetables, particularly the ones that are found to have the highest pesticide residues. So there's a website called the environmentalworkinggroup.org, EWG.org, and every single year they put out the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. The Clean 15 are the ones that have the least amount of pesticide residue on the produce. The Dirty Dozen are the ones that have the highest amount of pesticide residue. So within that list, it's if you're trying to decide, should I purchase this organically, should I purchase this conventionally? If anything, purchase the Dirty Dozen organically, and if nothing else, or if you're going to buy all of them organically, then purchase all your produce. Also, growing your own. If you've been curious about starting your own personal tower garden, contact me directly. We can get you set up to produce your own organic produce at home. Also, knowing your farmer and eating foods in season. This is also a big one. We had a discussion a couple weeks ago with Mighty Greens Farms and talked about how they spray nothing on their greens and how in their greenhouse, and really talked about some of these harmful chemicals that can be in other farms. And it's important to really know how your farmer treats the products that you're consuming. The next thing I'm going to talk about is phthalates. I feel like this is becoming more known or maybe just because I've been reading a lot on it. What are they? Where are they? And how can you reduce your exposure to them? So we'll talk about that. So phthalates are chemicals that are often used to soften plastics, and they're found in a wide variety of products, including bottles, shampoos, cosmetics, lotions, nail polish, deodorant, just to name a few. And at one time, the most flexible plastics contained the highest level of phthalates. And that one is spelled, I'm saying phthalates, but it's spelled PHTH. ALATES. So phthalates, it's like the PH is silent. So fortunately, they're starting to be phased out in the United States and in Europe due to really recognizing the emerging risks of exposure. The National Institute of the Environmental Health Sciences, which is really part of the National Institute of Health, has found that prenatal exposure to phthalates is associated with adverse genital development and can significantly reduce masculine behavior in boys. So starting to change and alter behavior. Women also with high exposure to phthalates while pregnant report significantly more disruptive behavior in their children. It's kind of interesting. And while other research from the NIEHS has found phthalate exposure to lead to thyroid dysfunction in adults, we have a growing body of people who are having adverse lab assessments done for their thyroid. I hear all the time, myself included, and when I first found out that I had Hashimoto's, it's like, oh my gosh, like what is this dinosaur sounding disease? You know, this is 4 years ago. And even though I knew a little bit about it, I didn't know the depth and the severity of all the things that can impact an autoimmune condition. And this is really why I find value in discussing this topic with you all today. So fortunately, as with BPA, so we talked about BPA before, if exposure is decreased, phthalates quickly exit the body. So your body has the ability to excrete it. The same study found that a large decrease in BPA levels by like a mere 3 days after participants stopped eating canned or packaged foods also found that phthalate levels in the urine decreased by about 55% during the same time period. So in order to reduce phthalate exposure, really minimize the use of plastics. We already talked about plastics before. And the recycling code number 3 that you'll see on the bottom of the plastic container. Use PVC-free containers. Buy plastic wrap and bags from polyethylene and use glass containers. If you use plastic containers, don't heat them in the microwave or heat them at all, or really just get rid of them. Just get rid of them. And just stop buying them, because again, the more that you buy those things, the more the producers produce those things, and you have the power to drive consumer products to help produce or lack thereof some of these harmful substances. Also choose phthalate-free toys. So when you are buying a gift for a baby shower, if you're not a parent and you're going to a baby shower, check to see if it's a phthalate-free toy. You don't want to add to the chemical burden of the family. Many large toy makers have really made the pledge to stop using phthalates, but just really be sure to look that they're made from polypropylene or that they're made from polyethylene. Purchase phthalate-free beauty products, so avoiding nail polish and perfumes and colognes and other scented products that list phthalates as a main ingredient. And then also many scented products, they just simply list fragrance and as an ingredient, which really can incorporate a number of different chemicals, including phthalates. So just think about that for a second. Anytime you see the word fragrance on a bottle, on a soap, on a shampoo, on a lotion, on a fragrance perfume that you spray on your body, it can have phthalates in it. So about probably back in 2017, when I eliminated really all forms of perfume and just really made the decision to switch over to essential oils and really making the pledge to change out all my beauty products. Mineral Fusion is a really good company. Also, Beauty Counter is a really good company. So for your makeup and your face and your body wash and your nail polish and your sunscreens, I would look for Mineral Fusion or Beauty Counter. Beauty counter, you have to go through a rep or you can purchase online. And actually, my husband's cousin is a rep. So if anyone is interested in learning more about beauty counter products, they have male and female products, let me know. Okay, our carcinogens. So you've probably heard someone say that causes cancer. And likely you've even heard someone else say everything causes cancer. But the truth is that hundreds of chemicals are capable of inducing cancer. And in humans or animals, after prolonged or excessive exposure, the chemically induced cancer generally develops many years after exposure to a toxic agent. So it takes time. In 2010, the President's Cancer Panel reported the true burden of environmentally induced cancers has been grossly underestimated. This group of carcinogens has not been addressed adequately by the National Cancer Program. So like even the U.S. Cancer Panel is reporting that we need to do something bigger here. We're severely underrepresenting what we need to be doing for cancer. And the American people, even before they are born, are bombarded continually with a myriad combinations of these dangerous exposures. So according to that report, there are about 80,000 chemicals in commercial use in the United States, but only 2% of these have been assessed for their safety. I'm going to say that again. 80,000 chemicals in the commercial use in the United States. Only 2% of that have been assessed for their safety. There's so much around us that we just don't question on a regular basis. Say, oh, that's fine. That's that I got from the store. Just because it's sold in the store doesn't mean that it's safe or healthy for you or your family. Okay, the Cancer Panel reports that and really singles out radon, formaldehyde, and benzene as major environmental toxins that are causing cancer. Okay, radon, what is it, where is it, and how do you get less of it? So radon is colorless, odorless, radioactive gas. You can't smell it, you can't see it, and it's a gas. So you can inhale it. So it comes from a natural decay of uranium and thorium. It's found in nearly all soils, and it typically moves through the ground and into the home through cracks in the floors, the walls, and the foundation. It can be released from building materials, from well water. It breaks down very quickly. It gives off radioactive particles. Its long-term exposure to these particles can lead to lung cancer. In the US, there was the Environmental Protection Agency. They estimated that radon causes about 21,000 lung cancer deaths in the United States each year. So not even talking about just from smoking, we're talking about radon exposure, with 1 in 20 US homes having elevated levels. I know that when we got our home tested, when we first moved in, we had very high levels of radon. And in the time when we were kind of in the middle of construction, trying to figure out, okay, what can we do about this? And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. So radon exposure really being the second leading cause of lung cancer after smoking, and is a leading cause among non-smokers. Many radon-related lung cancers and deaths can be prevented by testing for radon and taking the necessary steps to lower radon in homes that have elevated radon. This process is called radon mitigation. So in order to help reduce radon exposure, if you get your air checked, so to be like if you were someone who does home inspections, so you get your air home checked, simple, it's inexpensive. And if you use a well for your water, also check to make sure that your water supply isn't exposed to radon either. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is formaldehyde. So what is it, where is it, and how do you get less of it? We're almost done here. Formaldehyde is, again, a colorless, flammable, but very strong smelling chemical. And it is usually used in building materials and in the manufacture of many household products. It occurs naturally in the environment, but it's also produced in small amounts by most living organisms as a part of just the normal metabolic process. Several government agencies have classified formaldehyde as a known human carcinogen. Formaldehyde sources in home include pressed wood products such as particle board, plywood, glues, adhesives, permanent pressed fabrics, cigarette smoke, fuel burning appliances, and then formaldehyde is commonly used in industrial fungicide, germicide, and infectants, and is a preservative in mortuaries and medical laboratories. I can remember when I was back in undergrad at U of I, for my human anatomy and physiology class, the extremely strong odor, not from the decayed body, but from the formaldehyde. And they really should have had us wear protective wear. We were not wearing anything protective. But, you know, I just remember it was such a potent smell. And then research studies of workers exposed to formaldehyde has suggested that there's an association between formaldehyde exposure and several cancers. So we already said it's carcinogenic, including nasal pharyngeal cancer and leukemia. Rats exposed to formaldehyde fumes developed nasal cancer. So not to say that, again, everything is going to transfer from rats to humans, but it's pretty significant. To reduce formaldehyde exposure, use exterior grade pressed wood products to limit formaldehyde exposure inside your home, and then ensure that you've got adequate ventilation and moderate temperatures throughout your home space, and reduce humidity levels and air conditioners and use dehumidifiers, and then go natural by growing plants in your home. Plants have, they release oxygen for us. They also help to clarify the air in your home. Okay, benzene, what is it? Where is it? How do you decrease your exposure? So unlike other compounds that are airborne, benzene is colorless liquid that evaporates quickly. So it can be a little bit airborne, but it's naturally found in crude oil and is a basic petrochemical. It's also known as a human carcinogen. So benzene is found in tobacco smoke, it's found in gasoline, so therefore car exhaust, found in pesticides, found in synthetic fibers like clothing, found in plastics, inks, oils, and detergents. So benzene has been found in dryer sheets and scented laundry detergent, and also in soft drinks, although it's been kind of reformulated to really exclude it. But when you think about reducing, and we'll talk about some ways to do this, but in dryer sheets, this is a big one that not many people think about, but one of the things that we've done in our house is we use dryer balls, and then sometimes we'll use distilled vinegar to soften the clothes in the washing machine, and then use the dryer balls with some essential oils to give a natural scent to the clothes instead of using the harsh chemical, potentially benzene-ridden scented dryer sheets. Also, about 50% of benzene exposure in the U.S. results from smoking tobacco and secondhand smoke. So if someone's smoking near you and you're not okay with it, obviously, and you don't smoke, it's your right to say something or to move. I am pretty blunt about that. Substantial amounts of data can link benzene to aplastic anemia, bone marrow abnormalities, and leukemia. So particularly what's called AML, acute myeloid leukemia, and acute non-lymphocytic leukemia. So to reduce your benzene exposure, don't smoke. Try to avoid secondhand smoke, first and foremost. Second, ensure that you've got adequate ventilation in your home. Use non-scented laundry detergents, or just get rid of them completely and use distilled vinegar in your wash load, and then dryer balls that are made of wool. And then keep plants in your home. So this is something I'm currently working on, is just seeing, again, what type of plants we can fill in our airspace to help us purify our air. And then some of the conclusions and looking at all this, again, I know this sounds like a lot, and there are really serious health effects when you have an accumulation of exposure to some of these toxins. But it's important to remember that poison is in the dose, right? So like the amount of the toxins that you're exposed to is going to create a higher level of impact. Problems usually result in prolonged or excessive exposure. Doesn't mean that a little bit over time can't create a large, it's almost like a cap on it, right? So it builds up over time. So here are some of my top tips to really include a few simple steps that I feel will go a long way towards protecting you and your family. If you decrease your use of plastic or just get rid of it altogether, transition to glass, stainless steel, and porcelain containers, glasses, and mugs. Anything you eat on should not be plastic. Wash all produce. So if possible, purchase organic options, especially from the Dirty Dozen list that we talk about. Go to www.ewg.org And you can look up the Dirty Dozen on Clean 15. Get rid of products with the term fragrance, right? Look at your soaps, look at your shampoos, look at those containers. If you see fragrance on there and it doesn't have a little asterisk that says from organic materials or from essential oils, then the fragrance can have phthalate in it. And we talked about the detrimental effects with phthalates. Get your air checked, your air in your home checked, your water checked for radon. Don't smoke. If you currently smoke, it's your time to use this as your signal to figure out a way to quit. Keep plenty of plants in your home, and just look for simple ways to reduce your everyday exposure. I know I said it's on clothes, it's in nearly everything. You're like, well, Ashley, I can't, get rid of everything in my house, but you can take one step at a time to slowly reduce in a very manageable way that will help reduce your risk with minimal amount of stress and the risk to the health of your family. Lots of stuff that we just covered. I know it's a little bit of a dense topic, so take it bit by bit. Let me know if you have any questions, and hope you all have a great rest of your Tuesday.